Everything that you know has a reference because you've learned it before today. We call that the familiar past. And because we have more references to the past, prevent us from stepping into that superhero that we all are in order to create what we call a predictable future.
You're listening to The Life and Money Show, a podcast that brings you the stories and strategies of people who are living a meaningful and intentional life by design, building true wealth for their families, and impacting the world around them. And now here are your hosts, Annie Dickerson and Julie Lamb.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Life and Money Show. I'm Annie Dickerson here with Julie Lamb. Julie, how are you today?
I am doing fantastic. I'm a little cold, I'll be honest. It's that time of the year.
Back in the Bay Area.
Remember this? Yep. So last year on the podcast, you probably heard me complaining about it getting cold. And then I talked about it for like the next 6 months. I'd be like the talk of the town every time we hopped on the podcast. But a little cold here back in the Bay Area, a little foggy, but I'm making it work. How's it over there?
You're heading to Hawaii soon, right?
I am. Yep.
But I don't know if this was true. I just read some headlines that they're expecting 100-mile-an-hour winds in a blizzard.
Really?
Is that possible?
I have no idea. Is it really a blizzard? No?
I don't know. I'm like, is this possible? No, my in-laws are in town, and so my father-in-law just showed it to me. Maybe he's reading fake news. Who knows? But
yeah, these days you never know. But yeah, I don't know. I have no idea. You know, I don't watch the news. I mean, right. It's so embarrassing. Like, because people will tell me stuff like this. I'm like, I have no idea. Yeah. Like, nobody posted about this on Facebook.
I know.
I don't know.
I know. I don't even go on Facebook anymore either. So like, I've lost that source of news. But you'll have to let me know when you're in your shorts and your bathing suit. If it's snowing outside on the beach, then you can tell me.
Well, if it's snowing on the beach in Hawaii, I will definitely take a picture and send it to Slack, and you guys can all be like, oh, look at her. She's in her swimsuit in the snow in Hawaii. Who would have thought?
Oh, my goodness. Well, I still can't believe all your amazing travels from these last several months. And I know you're continuing on, and there's so much more ahead. And we're just coming off of our company retreat as well. And so just bringing in all of that life by design and just all the aspects of our lives, and leading by example and showing our kids too how to sort of have it all, right? Build this business and have the life by design, travel. And I know you homeschool, and it's just what an incredible journey that we've been on.
Yeah. Well, so much of this, I think, been made possible by the folks that we've been coached by, right? And over the years, we've been coached by quite a few people. You know, investing in yourself, in ourselves, is one of the first things that you and I both did when we were like, hey, we're going to get into this multifamily thing and we're going to buy apartments. Well, we didn't just go out there and start talking to brokers and raising money and all of that fun stuff. We got a coach, both of us, on it before we even had met each other. And so investing in ourselves has always been something so central to what we believe in, which is why it's so fun to have brought Coach Trevor McGregor today on our show and to chat with him a little bit about all of the fun mindset stuff that we have chatted with him about over the last 4 or 5 years of working together that has allowed us to get into the right mindset to even believe that we can even do it, right? Because I hear it all the time, like, I'm not a real estate investor, or who am I? Like, I don't know anything about syndications, or I don't know anything about note investing or flipping, or all of the things that we talk about here on the show, which is why we, through this podcast, try to be a little bit of a coach in a way to everybody, where we introduce all these different things and, try to pluck all the strategies out from the guests that we have on the show. But it was so fun having him here today.
Yeah. And when you talk about investing in yourself, that ROI is like none other. You cannot find a better investment out there than investing in yourself. And we've been working with Coach Trevor since, as I say on the show, before Goodegg became Goodegg, before we had this podcast, before any of this. And it wouldn't have been possible had it not been for him and all of the many lessons and the guidance that he's given us over the years, and how he's pushed us to push ourselves past our comfort zones, because success is on the other side of your comfort zone. And our world, when we started in this business, was so small and we didn't even know, right? But slowly and surely, he and the other coaches that we've had, as well as the many, many people we've met along this path, have slowly pushed those boundaries outward and more and more. And so that's how we've seen a lot of the success we've seen in such a short amount of time. And in this episode, he just grazes the very tip of the iceberg. He's such a wealth of knowledge. There's so much that we've covered over the years that we've been coaching with him. But I think the strategies, the tips, the guidance, the advice that he gives in this show is so pivotal and such a great foundation for anybody, no matter what stage of life you're in, no matter what your goals are, what your obstacles are right now. These tips that he shares in this show will help you no matter where you are in life. So I say it at the end of this show, but now I'm going to say it at the beginning of the show. Be sure to grab a pen if you definitely want to take some notes during this call. I don't say that on every conversation, but for this one in particular, there's so many great nuggets in here. You're going to want to write some of this stuff down and remember it, because these strategies, these tips will serve you at various stages. And so what they mean to you today will be different from what they mean to you a month from now, a year from now. And so it's so important, so critical to keep these in your life and in your toolbox.
Yeah. You remember I created a binder because I take notes, like every coaching call that we've had with Coach T over the years. I have a page of notes, and one day I printed them all out and put them into a binder and bolded and highlighted he's got all these like strategies. He's got an answer, a solution for everything, 3 solutions for like one thing. If like you're struggling with something, and like it could be anything, like limiting beliefs was a huge one for me. And we talked about one of those today, but there's so many. I mean, there's so many strategies that he has, but I put it together in a book and read that thing like it's the Bible. And that's how if you're out there thinking, gosh, I really want to get into real estate in a big way, and I really want to make it really big, whatever, passively or actively, it's the mindset. I guarantee you the thing that's holding you back from success isn't the person that you haven't met or the partner you don't have or the money you don't have. It's the mindset, because all of those things are just resources, right? And if you can learn to have the right mindset, you can learn how to be resourceful. And if you can learn how to be resourceful, the world is your oyster. It's out there waiting for you to have it all. So definitely take notes for sure.
100%. And for any of our listeners who may be new to the world of real estate investing, a great place to start, in addition to working with Coach T, of course, is to grab a copy of our book. It's called Investing for Good. We really dive into all the ins and outs you need to really understand the world of passive investing and syndications. And we have a free hardcover copy for all of you. Just go to goodegginvestments.com/book. And with that, let's dive into our conversation with Coach Trevor McGregor. Trevor, welcome to the show. How are you?
Well, thank you for having me on, ladies. Blessed and grateful to be here with you. I'm great.
Oh, I could not be happier to have you on the show. I mean, you're a big part of the reason why we even have this show in the first place. And we'll dive into all of that. But as many of our listeners know, Julie and I are huge proponents of mindset and performance coaching, which has been such a big part of our success. And we've had the privilege of having you in our corner for several years now. And in fact, you started coaching us from the very beginning, before Goodegg was even Goodegg in the first place. And over the years, you've coached us through so many of the ups and downs of growing and scaling a business, including various mindset issues that pop up along the way, as you know, which is your specialty. And in addition to coaching, I know you have quite an extensive background when it comes to real estate investing and entrepreneurship and so much more. So start by sharing some of the highlights of your incredible journey with us. Tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are today.
Well, thank you again. And yes, I am blessed and grateful to have worked with you and known you ladies for a long time now. And I think it's really empowering for us to all get on, share these gifts with the listener, because I think just like it wasn't easy for you when I got started, it wasn't easy for me. So I'll go right back to the beginning that I'm born and raised in Canada. So if you detect a little bit of a Canadian accent, you'll know why. And grew up in a middle-class family, loved sports, loved everything growing up, went to university, studied business. And then like most of us, we go and work in a corporate job. And for me, my W-2 job was in the hospitality business. And so I literally did a little bit of marketing, a little bit of finance, a little bit of HR, grew through the ranks of this company. And at one point, the owners of the company came to me and they said, Trevor, we really like what you're doing here. Would you be interested in investing in our expansion plan for our company? And I thought, wow, this is a really unique opportunity. So I literally took all of my 401k. I even cashed in all of my savings, and I even convinced my own parents to take out a 6-figure second mortgage on the family home. I put all of this money into this expansion plan. And for the first while, that was where I thought, man, I'm going to retire rich and young and happy and really good, until around 2001, right around the time those planes hit the towers. And we were expanding really fast. We were overextended. We couldn't hang on. And to make a really long story short, I lost all of that money that I put into this expansion plan. So there I was in my early 30s. I was broke. I gained a bunch of weight. And I literally had, I don't know if you ladies or the listener have ever felt broke, overweight, and had a dust up in their marriage, but that was me. And so I was at this low point where I figured, gosh, I better do something about this, because I was married with 2 beautiful children at the time. And ladies, thank God for me, I found a coach. And that coach took me under his wing. And he said, Trevor, what's happened to you is unfortunate, but you got to get up, dust yourself off, and find a way to keep on keeping on. And I said to him, I don't know how I'm going to do that when I don't have any money. I don't have any ideas of what to do. And then he asked me one question that changed my life forever. He said, have you ever thought of investing in real estate? And I said, real estate? I don't know anything about real estate, nor do I have any money. And he said, Trevor, you can use other people's money, buy a property, fix it up, or rehab it, or rent it, and then literally do that again and again and again. And ladies, my back was up against the wall. And I really didn't have any other choices. So I literally scraped and pillaged enough money off of other friends, bought my first property, fixed it up, refinanced it, and I had enough money to buy a second property. And in Vancouver, Canada at the time, it was going through some pretty nice appreciation. So then I was able to fix that up, took that money out of both properties, and I bought my third property, which was a duplex. And I don't know about you, but that's when I discovered what cash flow really was. And I got really excited and then leveraged that over the next year or so into another duplex, another one. And then I started to buy fourplexes. And to make a long story short there, in just 2.5 years, not only did I have a beautiful cash flowing real estate portfolio, but I was able to pay off all of my failed loans. And I even paid my parents back in full. And that's really where I got started in real estate.
Wow. How did that feel when you were finally able to crawl out of that low place that you were in, pay back your parents, make them whole? Tell us how that felt.
It was really unnerving because there was nothing that said it was going to work. I had to either choose fear or choose faith. And I decided to choose faith, and God, thank goodness I did. But it was really having that coach. And he was almost like a teacher, like a mentor, like a facilitator, like an accountability buddy that made sure I was doing the right things in the right order at the right times and for the right reasons. And what was really cool about it is I started to gain more confidence. I said, wow, as I do this, I remember coaching my son's Little League baseball team where the co-coach said to me, Trevor, how are you doing this? I mean, you're going out there buying all these properties and creating this mini empire. He said, would you sit down with my wife and I and kind of share what you're doing? And I said, yeah, well, buy me a beer and I'll do anything. So I literally went over to their house one day and I literally laid out my blueprint on how I started to really go out there and find properties and find the money for them, fix them up. And I literally showed them what to do. And ladies, really, this is where it's really cool. Within 1 month, they bought their first rental property. Within 2 months, they had their second. And 8 months later, they had 3 rental properties. And that's when people also started to come to me saying, oh my God, show us what you showed them how to do. And I think that that's when the coaching bug bit. And I knew I was really passionate about sharing this just like my coach had done for me. And I think that that's when the coaching bug bit.
I want to go back to the moment when you decided to get a coach, because we hear this a lot, right? People know that they need a coach, but then for whatever reason, they always have a hurdle, right? They say, well, I'll get a coach when I have enough money, or when I do this deal, or after I get to this point, then I'll get a coach. You were at such a low place. And how did you know that that was the thing? Or how did you stumble into it? Did you meet this person? How did you know that this was an investment worth making?
Well, that's a great question. And I think for me is I really had my back up against the wall where I really didn't know what I didn't know. And just like anybody who doesn't know what they don't know, you want to try to find somebody who has already done what it is you're trying to do. And so whether that is a coach, a mentor, a teacher, like I said earlier, an accountability partner, I think that when you put two heads together, you really get the output of three people. And so for anyone that's out there that's listening to this, that maybe goes, well, now I don't have enough money, or I'm not sure it'll work out, I really invite them to really ask, what's the consequence if you don't hire a coach, if you don't have a mentor or a teacher or a trainer? Because it can be really good to read books and listen to great audios, right? And even go to events. But I'm telling you, a coach is somebody that when you start working with them one-on-one or even in a group setting, they literally help you go further faster. In fact, coaches are those types of people that can help you do something we call turning decades into days, right? Why take 10 years to figure something out when somebody else has gone before you? And that's why my coach and one of my mentors, Tony Robbins, says success leaves clues. And I know you ladies are big Robbins fans, and I ended up literally going to events with Tony and reading his books and listening to every CD. And because of my real estate coaching, that's when I literally exploded into other coaching and went on to work for Tony Robbins for over half a decade as one of his top master coaches on the planet. And what I learned from him is literally that anyone who is stuck, or they don't think they can do it, or they've got limiting beliefs, or they don't have the capital, when you start seeing a new way to think and behave, you start to go out there and absolutely start bringing forth what you need in order to make massive progress. So looking back at my journey, that's really what my coach did for me, just like I did for those people that started to get into real estate, just like I started to do with people when I worked for Tony Robbins.
They should have a name for people who follow Tony Robbins, like Tony Heads or something. Like,
yeah, that's good. The fans of the big guy, we call it. Fans of the big guy.
There you go. Well, I knew, and I don't know if I've ever told you this story, Trevor, but I knew from the first time I shook your hand that I was going to work with you. Did you know that?
No, I did not know that. I remember meeting you, but man, I don't know that story. Yeah, that's awesome.
For the listeners, I met Julie and I both, I think, met Trevor at a conference several years ago. And I heard you speak on stage. And after that, I was like, oh man, I got to go meet this guy. He's like spouting all this wisdom and he's got this great energy about him. I got to go talk to him. And I walked up to you. And even though you had just come off the stage, you shook my hand and had such a friendly, inviting energy to you. And I get goosebumps just thinking about the handshake. There was something electric in that handshake. I don't know what it was, but I still remember exactly that moment. And I remember in the conversations after, we talked a lot about resourcefulness, not about the resources you have. It's about how you go about it, the resourcefulness that you have. And that's carried us through so much in our personal investing as well as this business. And I think a lot about how they say your business or your investing or your portfolio grows to the extent that you do.
Yep.
And in the time that we've worked with you, man, there's no measuring stick that will show you how much that Julie and I have grown from the very first time when we started working with you. We didn't even think we could raise 200, 300, 500,000. And you've seen us through so much.
Well, I love that. And thank you for the honor, as it's been a pleasure. And I think it was the same for me, where when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And I remember meeting both of you at that conference. And obviously, we've been to other conferences together where I've seen both of you on stage sharing your wisdom and your knowledge, because I really do believe that the secret to living is giving. And the more that we give, the more that we receive back. So whether I learn from my coach or Tony Robbins and I share it with you, I know that you two ladies are the types of individuals that are going to go share that with as many people as you can, because a high tide lifts all boats. And again, it doesn't matter if you're new to real estate, if you're an intermediate in real estate or an expert in real estate, the growing and the learning never stops, does it?
Absolutely. And speaking of which, I know that at this point, you've done over 30,000 coaching sessions, which is just mind boggling. When I think about anything that I've done more than 30,000 times besides like breathing, it's like nothing. It's like, that's tremendous. And so across all of those coaching sessions, and I know you've coached people at all different levels, tell us about some of the highlights, some of the common themes that you see that are maybe holding people back, or what's the differentiator? What are some of those differentiators between people who see success and those who don't?
Well, it's such a great question. And again, I've been blessed to literally work with millionaires and billionaires. I've worked with Fortune 50 CEOs. I've worked with doctors and attorneys. I've worked with Olympic athletes. So I've been very blessed. And the fact that I have done 30,000 coaching sessions, well, I'd have to be an idiot at this stage not to see where people get stuck. And I'm telling you that most people get stuck due to one thing and one thing only, and that is limiting beliefs, right? Again, it doesn't matter where you are in your journey of real estate or where you are in your journey of life. And it doesn't matter if it's real estate. It might be something you want to do in your career or in your finances or in your relationships or in your health, where you've got good intentions, but all of a sudden something comes up in this 3-pound mass between our ears called our brain that literally paralyzes us, or we get analysis paralysis, or we have a little bit of doubt or fear or worry or anxiety. And guess what? The doubt, the fear, the worry, and the anxiety is natural. But the goal is to ask yourself, are you going to let that limit you to what real estate could be for you and your family? Or are you going to find a way to take a new position of authority over the fear, right? Because fear is not necessarily good or bad, right? But you've got to acknowledge it and then ask yourself, not just what do I need to do to get past it, but who do I need to be to step into what we call extreme ownership of courage, to then stand on top of the shoulders of other people who have also broken through that doubt, that fear, that worry, that anxiety, to really get to the next level of life, either personally. Does that resonate?
Oh, yeah. Extreme ownership of courage. I love that. I'm going to write that down.
Yep.
So give us some tools that some people might be able to use to help them get over those limiting beliefs that they have. Because I know that when we first met and when we first started coaching together, there were so many limiting beliefs when it came to, specifically for me, even doing something like this, talking on a podcast or getting on a stage or talking to an important investor. And all of the work that we've done over the years has really gotten me to this place now where I'm very comfortable. I don't love it, but I'm very comfortable. So what are some tools? Because I know you have so many, but maybe pick the top one or two that you might be able to share with the listeners that can help them get over their limiting beliefs, whether it's like people get stuck in their head. I hear this all the time. Well, I'm not a real estate investor. You just said it too earlier, right? You're like, yep. I don't know anything about real estate investing. And so how can we help the listeners get over this idea that if they haven't done a lot in real estate, doesn't mean that they can't and that they won't, right? So what are some of those tools?
Well, I love the question, Julie, and I think it really boils down to one of the strongest tools that we use, and you ladies know this, but it'll be really good for the listener, is to really work on what we call your 4 S's, because there are 4 words that all start with the letter S, as in superhero, that you really need to check in with and take personal inventory on if you want to go from where you are today to where you truly want to be. Because again, there's always a gap, right? And our job as coaches or podcasters or whatever we are is to help people see through a different lens and close that gap. And the best way to do that is to really go through the 4 S's. So I'll do that in a minute. But I also want to remind you that everybody has what we call their own MOW, or what's known as their model of the world, right? It's the lenses we see through, the headphones we listen through, or the fingertips we touch with, where you got to think that everything that you know, right, has a reference because you've learned it before today. We call that the familiar past. And because we have more references to the past than we do the present, right, or even the future, we tend to focus on the past. And because that happens, we tend to tell ourselves stories that either hinder or prevent us from stepping into that superhero that we all are in order to create what we call a predictable future. So let me go through the 4 S's because they're uber powerful. And what's great about these is if you learn them one time, you can't unlearn them. You have them for the rest of your life. And not only can you use them to take yourself from where you are to where you want to be, but you can also help your spouse. You can help your kids. You can help your aging parents. You can help your community, right? Because these are the beautiful 4 S's that literally will tell you almost a report card on what could be holding you back. And the very first one is really what we call your state management. And state refers to your focus, right? And a lot of people are focused in America on what they don't want. Any major city in America, PC people in a state and a focus where they go, I don't want to be broke, or I don't want to be fat, or I don't want to be lonely. We call those the big 3, right? Money, health, and relationships. Well, they've got to really understand that they're doing themselves a disservice to just focus on what they don't want, because we call that a moving away from modality, when what we do in high performance coaching is ask you, well, what do you want? We call that a moving towards modality. And it sounds a little better like this, like I want to be abundant, I want to be in great shape, and I want to have really vibrant, healthy relationships. And I'm telling you, where focus goes, energy flows. So the first thing I would ask people to take personal inventory on is, what have you been focused on? Because what you focus on, you feel, and what you feel is literally what your brain and your body will go out there and find for you through the law of familiarity. So does that first S make sense?
We'll get back to our conversation with Trevor in just a minute.
Have you been thinking about investing in real estate but aren't sure you have the time or the desire to manage the investment? Perhaps you're afraid, like we were, that you'll make the mistake of choosing the wrong mortgage or the wrong team and lose your entire investment. Well, that's exactly why we created the Goodegg Investor Club. We do the work of identifying solid real estate investment opportunities in the best markets around the country and then partner with you to acquire these investments, and then we'll all share in the returns. We'll identify the growing markets, strong, experienced teams, and the solid deals. We do all the heavy lifting of managing the tenants and the renovations, and as a passive partner, you get to enjoy all the benefits of investing in real estate: monthly cash flow, long-term appreciation, and the ongoing tax benefits. When we first discovered passive investing through real estate syndications, we realized it fit perfectly into our busy lives. We could put our money to work for our families, work less, and get more time back in our days so that we could focus on what matters most and discover our true passion and purpose in life. We've now helped hundreds of people invest passively in real estate syndications and are seeing the positive impact it's had on their lives. We invite you to partner with us by joining the Goodegg Investor Club today so you can start putting your money to work for you and get more time back in your day, because we know that when people have more time in their days, they can do the true work they were intended to do, and the world will be a better place. To sign up for the Goodegg Investor Club, go to goodegginvestments.com/invest and we'll take it from there. That's goodegginvestments.com/invest.
And now, back to our chat with Trevor McGregor.
Yes, it does. Sorry, I was trying to get to my mute button.
No worries.
Yes, absolutely. I love all of these tools, and I'm excited to hear the rest because I don't know if I remember this, but the other 3. But I think so much of where we live in our head is the place that we will always be, right? It's like you're saying, you won't be able to get beyond that because it's where we live. It's what we think every day. It's what we hear every day. And so state you're in is also such a Tony Robbins thing. And so I love for folks who are listening who might be like, I want to think differently and I want to get into a different state. One of the best ways to move into a different state is to move your body, right? Yeah. Like that's one of the easiest ways. And that's one thing that before a podcast, like the one we're doing now, I stood for 2 seconds. I still do it and do my Superwoman pose, right? And all of a sudden I get into this different state. And so that's like the easiest way, right? When I think about state, and if you want to change like that, is to move your body and get going, whether it's a walk, a stance that you do. Trevor, we've talked about this, throwing on your favorite song that really gets you pumped right before you're about to do something, right? How that automatically changes like where you are and lifts your state into a different place. So yeah, love it.
Yeah, it's absolutely spot on. And I love that you say that, because often physiology first, because your physiology will scramble and change your focus. And believe it or not, it'll also start to change your language patterns. So I can't say anything other than great job, because once we check in with our state, it then invites us to check in with number 2, which is our story, right? And our story is really that identity that we live in most often. And most people have a negative story saying, I'm too old. I'm not educated enough. What if I lose money? What if I lose investor money? What if I make a mistake? And again, their story is one that holds them back. Yet I'm telling you, there's probably times in your life where you had maybe a tough story, a scary story, an uncertain story, but you found a way to literally step into your higher self and achieve something that maybe you're able to do. Maybe you got through high school when you thought you weren't, or maybe you got into college, or maybe you took your driver's exam and you thought you're going to fail and you passed, right? Or maybe you were going to backpack around Europe, but you thought, oh, it'll take too long or be too expensive, yet you did that at the age of 18. Or maybe, just some of you, maybe have raised children when they don't come with an instruction manual, do they? So we know at the end of the day that you got to shift your state and your focus, number one, and then there's a unique opportunity to also shift the story and go back to a time where you literally found a way to have a breakthrough, because I'm telling you, that same breakthrough in your story is waiting in real estate.
Yep. And I remember walking through these now as we're talking about it. And there were many different exercises, but I don't know if there was like one exercise that you'll remember that we talked about to help people rewrite their story. Like if somebody's listening to this and they're like, okay, well, I do tell myself that I'm not a real estate investor. I'll never be able to raise $1 million. Whatever their story is, what's like one quick exercise that people can do to help them immediately rewrite the story? Because we've done so many together. And sure. Every time that was like the homework item and we came back, and over the years that we've worked together, I've really been able to rewrite my own story. But what's like a one quick way for people to rewrite their story in their head?
I'll give you the best one ever. It's called a bridge phrase, right? And a bridge phrase is a bridge that takes you from where you are to where you want to be. And I'll give you an example. For most people, lots of people want to write a book, right? But they go, oh, I'm a terrible writer, or I crumple up every piece of paper I start writing with, or no one will ever want to read this book. So what we do is we get them to start by asking 3 bridge questions that take people over the bridge. And it really starts with these phrases. I am beginning, I am becoming, and I am allowing myself to. So I'm beginning, I'm becoming, I'm allowing myself to. And here's what it sounds like. I'm beginning to write freely and without editing. I'm becoming more familiar with my writing style. And I'm becoming more aware that people are going to resonate with this, because ultimately it's my truth or it's my story. Well, the same thing can be done in real estate. I'm beginning to listen to great podcasts like Life and Money, right? I'm becoming more aware of other people that are having success in real estate, and I'm allowing myself some space for grace to go slowly, but start marching up the same steps that they've stepped up. And I'm telling you, once you use these bridge phrases, it will take you from where you are to where you truly want to be. And then there's another bridge and another bridge and another bridge. But that's the beautiful thing about real estate, is there's no limits, right? There are no limits to who can have success with this beautiful thing called real estate. Does that resonate?
Oh, yeah. It's like these stories that we have in our head, we hang on to them so tightly, like it's the truth. It's what we live by. It's what's comfortable, right? And the way that you're putting it together, these words allow you to let go a little bit. And it allows you slowly to break the chains from those beliefs that you have in your mind about who you are and what your story is. So 100% love it.
Yeah. And people are really tough on themselves. And that's why I'll often say, you know what, give yourself a little bit of space for grace, right? You don't have to know it all. You don't have to have it all figured out. There's great books, there's podcasts, there's meetups, right? There's opportunities for you to learn from people like Annie and Julie here to literally unleash yourself. And a journey of 1,000 miles begins with that first step. But if your identity doesn't support taking that first step, you're never going to get to where you want to go.
Love it. All right. Well, what's the last two S's?
They're wonderful. And the third one is what we call your standards, right? And I'll tell you as a high performance coach that the quality of your ability to gracefully move up the ladder, right, in real estate will be in direct proportion to the standards that you hold yourself to. Are you reading the books? Are you listening to the podcasts? Are you seeing how you could take your money and put it into multifamily real estate or self-storage, right? Because again, you have to hold a standard that you're going to learn. You're going to find other like-minded people. And I'm telling you, a lot of people really need to do this. And that is what we call drawing a line in the sand and asking yourself, where am I living a lower standard that I need to start stepping up and playing above the line, right? And that's what I do also as a coach. Not only do I help you with your state or your story, but your standards, because I'm telling you, those are the three things upstairs in that brain that are going to absolutely catapult you forward. Does that land with you?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. 100%. Annie knows real well. I draw
We've got high standards
way up here. And I won't settle for less, but it's about being committed to that. If you want to have a certain outcome, we have our own clients that we coach as well. And I always tell them, if you don't set that standard for yourself, Tony Robbins always says you get in life what you put up with, right? Yep. And so it's like, if you don't set that bar high enough, you're going to get what you're willing to deal with. And so it's such a key part of getting to where you want to go, for sure. Yeah.
That's it. And absolutely, that takes us to the fourth and final S, ladies. You know this one, and that is your strategy, right? And your strategy is really being able to learn from someone else who's already done what it is you want to do, right? Do you want to invest in, again, small multifamily or a bigger apartment building? Do you want to invest in land? Do you want to invest in self-storage? Because as I've done this work and I've been a real estate investor a long time now, there's really nothing a lot new in real estate. So we often say that if you can follow a roadmap, a recipe, or a blueprint, it will definitely help you take you from where you are to where you want to be. And I'm telling you, you don't have to figure it out on your own. Real estate is not a one-man band where you got to try to figure it all out. You've got great things like Life in the Money Show or Goodegg Investments to really explode your results in a shorter amount of time than if you didn't have a strategy or someone else to kind of learn from. So really, if we recap them all, your state, which is your physiology, focus, and language, along with your story, which is your identity, along with your standards, which is the level you show up at, along with a sound strategy, can definitely explode your results in real estate investing.
I love it. We're just like brushing the surface because we've worked with you for so many years and hours and months of all calls exactly like this. And so I feel like we're just really brushing the surface. But you guys, this is like just a little taste of Coach T that we've been so grateful to receive over the years. So before we move into the Life and Money Show Spotlight round, I did want to ask you one question that I hear all the time. And this is such a great question for you because you're a mindset guy. And I hear it so much from women, especially who are just getting into real estate or who are just getting into syndications is, Julie, I love what you're doing. I love what you and Annie are doing. It's like so amazing. It sounds so great, but I'm afraid of failing. And I'm afraid that if I do this, I'm going to make a big mistake. And it's not really my position to tell them, right? Because I'm the one offering the opportunity. But what would you say if you were on a coaching call with a client of yours who was like, Trevor, I really want to invest and I want to make the move and I want to get into syndications, but I'm afraid of failing, particularly as it relates to women. What would you say to her?
Well, first of all, I'd say I understand how you feel, right? Because there's a ton of people out there that literally are gripped by that uncertainty of not knowing what they don't know. So again, if they're just new to real estate investing, or they're afraid that they're going to fail, or worse yet, they're afraid that their friends or their spouse or their community are going to criticize them, because again, that's a very uneasy feeling for women to have, let alone men, or the fact that some women don't feel worthy of having real estate success. I always say you got to stop and take inventory. Right? Because is it the fear of failure that's holding you back? Is it the fear of criticism holding you back? Is it the fear of feeling unworthy that's holding you back? Because at the end of the day, ladies, there's something I teach called the law of polarity. And that law decrees, just like the law of gravity says, if you jump off the roof of your house, you're going to go down. The law of polarity says that you can't have the fear of one thing without success being available on the other side of it. So let me give some examples. You can't have day without what? Night. You can't have black without white. You can't have masculine energy without feminine energy. And you cannot have the North Pole without the South Pole. So let's now bring the same feeling into the fear of failure, criticism, or unworthiness. Because if we turn it 180 degrees around with women or men, I'm telling you that you can't have the fear that if I try, I could fail without the polar, well, if I try, I could be wildly successful, right? Or the fear of criticism being, if I try to get into real estate investing, people might criticize me or they won't like my idea, right? That becomes, well, they could literally be inspired by you. You could literally influence other women to invest alongside of you, right? And that whole thing around unworthiness, that's a bunch of bunk, because I'm here to tell you that abundance is your birthright. You've got just as much opportunity to go crush it in real estate as anyone else on the planet, male or female. So at the end of the day, feel the feelings of fear or doubt or worry or anxiousness or whatever it is, but then use the law of polarity to turn it around. Because again, I'm telling you, for the ones that do, that also harness the power of their why. And that is, why do you want to get into real estate? Why do you want to make a little bit extra money? Why do you want a better life for you and your family? Why do you want to travel to places all over this beautiful blue planet and show your kids this world? Because I'm telling you, when the why is big enough, the how and the who starts to show up. That's my best answer for that. Does that resonate?
100%. I love all of this. It's like a little journey back down the last 4 years, isn't it, Annie?
Oh, yeah. Like, what I would say to the listener is, we've been coaching with Coach T for years now, but a lot of the times when Coach T, when you go back over this stuff, I'm like, oh yeah. Oh, I forgot about that. And you think when you listen to it, it's so simple, but it's not. It's so profound. And so I invite all the listeners, if you have not been taking notes this whole time, go back and take notes, and better yet, get yourself some sticky notes and get those key phrases down, the state, story, strategy, standards. Get those key phrases down and put them up all over your walls, all over your office and your house, because in those key moments, you'll see those phrases and it'll remind you of these key insights, because it's not enough to just hear them once. We've been hearing them over and over for years and it's still not enough. So to make the most of this session, I really invite all of you to really write this stuff down and to revisit it time and again.
I love that. And again, repetition is the mother of skill. Right. And it's not just that this is great information. It's really the application of it, because if it was just the information alone, every librarian in the US would be a multimillionaire, and they're not, because it's the application of this. So Post-it notes, reminders, even I've got clients that will have a little alarm on their phone that goes off every 2-3 hours to check in with their 4 S's. Check in with your state, check in with your identity or your story, check in with, are you living up to your standards? And are you working on something that you have a recipe, a roadmap, or a blueprint? And if you do, keep going. And if you don't, create one, or find someone like Annie and Julie to help you with one. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
And I remember something you would always say at the end of every one of our sessions. We would spend a time like this together. You would tell me to remember it as if I was going to go teach it to my husband and my kids. And that all would always stick with me. And I would leave the call with that. And I would remember that that's what I needed to do, was teach it to my husband and kids. And that's how this stuff gets cemented in you. And it becomes a part of you, where I may not remember all the 4 S's, but I actually live the 4 S's, right? And so that's the way you do it, is by learning and teaching, right, other people around you. So that's my tip for all the listeners out there, is take what Coach T said to you today and teach it, remember it, and try to teach it to somebody that you know and love and somebody that you care about.
Yep.
All right. Well, I could go on and on and on, because there's so much. I feel like I said, we need to have you back on the show and talk about all kinds of other fun strategies and tools around mindset. But right now, we're going to move into the Life and Money Show Spotlight round, where we're going to ask you a couple of questions around life and money. So the first question is around your life and money. So what is one thing that you're doing right now to live a meaningful and intentional life by design?
Well, I love the question. And I think for me, it's pretty easy, because I do believe, again, that the secret to living is giving. And so whether I'm giving a coaching session or giving a workshop or standing on stage or doing something with my 6-year-old's class at school, I'm really here on purpose and with purpose to share some of this stuff and put it into layman's terms, where people can really not only learn it, but start applying it. Because I really do believe in the book, Think and Grow Rich. And Napoleon Hill wrote this great book, and he says that the secret is in the title and throughout the entire book, because the secret is that if you want to be rich, if you want to become more, if you want to have more abundance, you have to think before you do, right? The doing is important, don't get me wrong, but remember, he wrote the book Think and Grow Rich, not Do and Grow Rich. So I like helping other people think, and sometimes get out of their comfort zone or to the edge of their comfort zone, only to find that there's even more room to expand. And that is how I give back to humanity.
I love it. And it's so funny, because I don't know that I really believed in manifestation until I read that book when we first started coaching together. I think that was like one of the first books you recommended I read.
Yep.
And yeah, I had to really step into it. If anybody listening has read that book, you know what I mean? you kind of have to take a leap of faith that it's not this like kind of woo-woo thing, but definitely wouldn't be sitting here chatting with you today had I not thought about how I was going to get to where we are. So love that 100%. And giving back is so much of what Annie and I love to do as well, which I think is why there's so much alignment over the years to working together. All right. Second question is around others' life and money. So what is one life or money hack that you can share that'll make an impact in others' lives right now?
Wow, that's a great question as well. And I think when it comes to life hacks or money hacks, is really sometimes you got to invest in yourself if you want to do something you've never done. So if somebody out there is really looking to grow in real estate as an investor or grow in knowledge or wisdom, I do believe that the best investment we can make is in ourselves. And whether you work with a coach or you take a course or you find a group of like-minded individuals, I really do believe that you become who you hang out with. And I also believe sometimes that free attracts freeloaders. So if you hang around with people that are not willing to invest in themselves or not willing to read books, listen to great podcasts, go to events, you become who you hang around with there too. So my hack would be to find people that elevate your emotions, that when you invest in yourself and they invest in themselves, I'll tell you this, a high tide lifts all boats.
I love it. Investing in yourself, the coaching, Annie and I have so much money over the years on coaching, and is not something that we invest our time and our money. So that's great. Last question is around life and money in the world. So what is one thing that you're doing right now to make the world a better place?
Well, thank you. Well, I'm going to bring in my sweet wife as well, because my wife and I, Lisa, really do believe in giving back. So a lot of the income that we make from real estate investing or from her children's book project, she wrote a beautiful book called A New Alphabet for Humanity that teaches little kids some amazing words that I wish we all would have learned when we were younger. Like instead of teaching kids that A is for apple and B is for ball and C is for cat, She rewrote this unbelievable book from A to Z with incredible words like where A is for abundance, and B is for bravery, and C is for compassion, and D is for diversity, and E is for empathy. And it goes on and on and on. And we found one of the best children's illustrators on the planet from Europe to do this book up. And I'm telling you, it has been a global sensation. And so not only do we give back by giving a ton of those books out to charity and Montessori schools and kindergartens and play schools and all that, but for every book we sell, we also plant a tree. And now we've planted trees in California, in Oregon, in Washington State, in British Columbia. We've even planted saplings as far away as Africa. So one of the things that we're doing is empowering not only children, but parents and teachers and grandparents to really start teaching these words through the book. And again, it's called A New Alphabet for Humanity. And for anyone that's interested in finding out more about the book, they can just go to the website, alphabetforhumanity.com, and check it out. It's an amazing, amazing project.
You are such a spectacular human. You and Lisa both. I mean, I hope that the listeners take that away, if nothing else, just your tremendous journey and coming from a place where you didn't know anything about this world. You didn't set out to be a coach. You didn't set out to invest in real estate. Things happen, and always life happens for you. And so these things came into your path, and you were very resourceful. You came right back, dusted yourself off, and made Trevor 2.0. Yep. And here you are today, and you've made such a big impact in not only our lives, but the lives of so many others. And so, Trevor, tell our listeners, I know they're going to want to follow up with you, and hopefully they'll want to work with you, but tell them what's the best place that they can go to learn more.
Well, thank you again. And thank you for having me on the show. I love what you ladies are up to. And I just absolutely applaud both of you and your team for putting out such amazing content and bringing amazing people onto the show. And yes, for anyone that wants to find out more about me or how a coaching structure works, they can simply find me at my website, which is trevormcgregor.com, or you can go to LinkedIn. I'm also on certain social media channels, but I've also just released a really cool new project. And it's my private podcast series where I share a lot of this exact wisdom and some of the top tools that I'd use to work with rock stars like you. And it's an 8-week program. You can find it on my website. And the name of that podcast is called Rich Beyond Belief: How to Really Enrich Your Life Through Coaching, Real Estate, Goal Setting, Goal Achievement, Time Management, Mastery, all of those great tools that we've been talking about. And what's great about this is it's less than what it costs to go out for a nice dinner with your spouse. So for anyone that really likes some of this content or wants to learn more, you don't have to specifically coach with me. It's almost like I come to you, you download it to your smartphone, and you can listen to it when you're driving or doing laundry, working out at the gym. But for anyone that wants to check that out, I highly recommend it.
Look at you. After the dozens and dozens of podcasts you've inspired, now you've got one of your own, and I'm sure it's packed with golden nuggets. So awesome. For all our listeners, we'll have all those links for you in the show notes. Trevor McGregor, peak performance coach, business strategist, real estate investor, and of course, one of the most incredible human beings we know. Trevor, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you, ladies, and keep up the amazing work that you're up to, as it is extremely impressive. Thank you so much.
You've been listening to The Life and Money Show, the #1 podcast for people who, like you, are living a meaningful and intentional life by design, building true wealth, and making an impact in the world. For more resources, check out goodegginvestments.com and be sure to join the Life and Money Show community on Facebook. And if you got value out of the show, please subscribe and give us a 5-star review so we can continue to bring you amazing new conversations.